All right. So, we have 6 submissions here for the Palace of Orinthalion composition. And for this submission, for this game, the main things that we are listening for are how these different cues combine together. I guess first, individually, they should fulfill each one of the musical themes that is set forth by the game for earth, wind, fire, and water. So we described the earth cue as being heroic and probably played by a group of individual musicians, or a small group of musicians playing individual small instruments as opposed to large ensembles. So it should be heavily melodic, but not very necessarily large sounding. The fire cue is probably the opposite of that. It's going to be the biggest and loudest cue. It represents the action and the battle with the enemy happening in the game. So you have your biggest and loudest and strongest musical cue, and it should kind of work against the earth cue in the melody, the harmony, and the composition as a whole. The water cue represents the emotional twists and turns and ups and downs in the game. Can either represent a more happy, positive emotional outcome where it's success, or you saved the town, or you saved the princess, or you saved your family, or you won the mission, or you defeated the enemy, or whatever it was. Or it can represent everything negative, where you lost, you were defeated, you were the negative outcome and from the result of the game. And the final, the wind here represents an element of danger or evil or stealth, as this is trying to avoid the enemy before you actually get into battle. There's a lot of times where you're creeping around, and you can either have a choice of directly engaging in battle or avoiding entirely. So probably has a lot more low end and a lot of more tenuous or tension-filled progressions. So, and then it's all about how they fit together. Remember, everything needs to start at the same time, then ends at the same time. It loops together and it plays back at the same tempo and the same key, so that they all fit. And generally, just looking over all of these, they look like they, at least visually, are set up to work well. But of course, we need to hear each one. So I'm going to start out with the earth cue. And I guess make sure that we can all hear this to start with. I think I have it set up. Let's try this. Let's try looping this. Is that playing? It looks like it's playing back in the broadcast. And can you still hear me? I'm going to do both of those things together. Just give me a heads up in the chat that you can hear the music and that everything is working just fine. All right. So I hear a really nice lead trumpet line. I would probably go for smaller instrumentation through this cue, as opposed to the trumpet could work, but the string could probably be a simple fiddle line, and maybe moving some of those lower instrumentation to a bassoon or some lower woodwind. But it looks like it's set up to loop and work correctly. Let's go to the wind. This represents the stealth element. Bring in the new idea, bring in the new instrumentation. So I think I hear choir, some bass and cello, or viola, and then like a Glock, So the only thing I really feel like I'm missing from here is more of a melody. I think the glockenspiel kind of fills a little bit of that, but it really feels like it's also following the chord progression. So maybe having a string line or maybe a harp coming in that actually lays out a real more kind of defined melodic line. Maybe it's even the choirs just feel like they're supporting the chord progression. Let's go to the fire cue. All right, I don't know, I feel like I need something a little bit faster. Feels a little bit too slow, just boom, boom, boom. Like maybe a marching snare or some other element, maybe more on the eighth notes. So that, because you got that swing back and forth. So something to punctuate more of the pace overall. Like you definitely need a strong lead line. This earth lead definitely works with the brass, but having another, maybe the trombones or the French horns could really build the lead line instead of just doing the bomb. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So to have a little bit more pace in between there. Try to water loop. All right, this works with the flute line. Excellent. Much lighter, much airier. It still has that solid melodic lead. Progressions work together. I'm going to guess that these 4 parts really fit well together. The progression works nicely, and it gives you a lot of room for the leads. I'd say when they're all 4 playing, you have more power in the lower range and could definitely have things that operate in the higher registers. Like that Glock is up there. Oops. The Glock is up there, but even the trumpet feels like it's maybe an octave lower than it could be, or the fire could have a trumpet line that's an octave up. All right, but good stuff. Let's move on to the next one there. Definitely fits well together, loops nicely. This one ended up with only 2, and they both say earth loop. So we'll just consider what they are. And I think there's a metronome. Metronome. Definitely avoid the metronome. I would avoid the piano part in the earth cue, because if it's like musicians, like I always picture this as a group of local entertainers or bards in a fantasy castle, and they're singing the tales of the adventurer to the king, and they probably wouldn't have a piano carrying around with them or big instrumentation. Definitely want to bring out the lead line a little bit more. I feel strong progression. Move the piano to maybe some woodwinds. Let's bring in the fire cue. Watch the repetition there. That feels, that one pad feels a little too synthetic. This. Oh, no, where'd it go? That. And in between, it just goes boom. It just goes around. So there definitely needs more development through this. The metronome is going to be the biggest issue initially, and just more development through each one of those cues. Really focus on the melodic lead, because I think you have the chord progression down because both of those seem to work together. But yeah, developing a melodic lead for each one of them and working on the realism of the instrumentation. All right, earth cue. This one feels very compressed and loud, and that the high-end triangle really is piercing. So this one feels like it has too much processing, but I like the melodic lead. The triangle can definitely come down. Maybe a little bit more percussion and a little bit more of, oh, that was nice, a bit of the harmonies just in the guitar chord. Bring. Then there's a gap. Bring. So a little bit more movement, a couple of other instruments, but the flutes work well together. Let's do wind. All right, I'm mainly feeling the chord progression. Seems like there's a little bit of melody from one of the instrument layers, but it mainly follows the chord progression, or at least changes when the chords change. So a little bit more separation in the lead line, and just more. Some of the elements seem to be mixed pretty far down overall. Just like a little bit of, there's an edge of grittiness to it overall. There's just like a harshness to the mix. I think that's compression or limiting or something. Oops. Makes it very fatiguing to listen to. And there's like no low end. Where's the low end of the fire cue? Almost like they're out of phase or something. Hold on. Nope. You definitely need more power in the mix. Less high end, a lot more low end. It's hard to hear all the different layers. I think there's choir in there. The melodies seem to work. That's good. Those are good textures working together, the harp and the Glock. And yeah, they're just really high end, real thin sounding, missing the low end. See how they work together? There's some good melodic elements. Yeah. Seems to be a bit of dissonance. When it all mixes together, it's real harsh, real difficult. That feels real compressed to make out the different instrument layers. May need to be panned out a bit more. No, it does feel like it's panned. So I'd say the mix is probably separating the instruments so they each have their own space, carve it out with EQ and panning, work on the velocity of the instrumentation so that it can sit in its own layers and area, and it's hard to really tell, but the composition seems like it works and the melodies seem like they work, but I'm having difficulty telling if they are working well together. All right, doing well here. Let's keep on to the next one. Earth. Alright, so solid lead line, good progression. Again, the instrumentation feels a little bit big. You could move a lot of the same compositional elements to new instruments. Just give them new voices. So things like winds for the lead melodies, instead of some of the bigger brass, moving that to maybe some stringed instruments. Let's see here. Okay. Everything loops well together, or loops. This cue does feel like it's a bit too much in the lower range. That high brass does get up a little bit higher, but there's a lot of power in the lower range, and we gotta balance it here in some of the other cues. So let's go to the wind loop. Yeah, some of this low end kind of gets mixed in with the earth low end, so you want to make sure you have specific ranges for the instruments. Nice lead lines from the strings. Even like that low timpani or the low bass drum feels like it's kind of hard to be heard. It's just such low end. Might be just my headphones also. Let me see that loop again. Watch out, there's like a little pop or click. Like a gap. Let's see if it's at the beginning or end. Let's move here. Yeah, that little gap right there means each time it loops around, it pops. So watch out for that part. Let's go to the fire cue. Right here, you have a lot of movement in the timpanis. They're at a faster pace overall. But that needs to be, it gets all, muddies up all the low end. So it either needs to have something with a faster, sharper attack on it, or do something like a snare, so that you still get that pacing overall, but it doesn't muddy up the low end. The lead part is good. Strong string lines with a good lead melody. But could definitely use more from the percussion. The wind cue. Great. Again, good use of melody. Follows the progressions overall. Here, it's there's less low end, so there's better definition to the instruments. Maybe just a little bit more movement from the lead melody. Kind of sits on the chord changes a little bit too much, but there's some movement in there. Da, change, boom, boom, change. Da 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 da, boom, change. Da da, change. So there's a couple of notes moving from one chord to the next, but just a little more movement from the lead line in the water cue. Let's bring back in the different elements. Everything seems to fit together nicely. The main thing I hear is the low end, just those, all those drums pounding away. Does kind of cloudy everything up down there, muddy everything up down there. But overall, definitely fits together nicely. Compositionally, definitely works. Just a bit of tweaks on the instrumentation and mix. Cool. All right. Do this one now, starting with the earth. Oh, I like that lead string line. The little bounce from the rest of the strings works well. Maybe a little percussion through here. Maybe following it with a flute line. Piz going back and forth, pizzicato strings. Loops nicely. Yeah, just a couple more layers of instrumentation, but the lead melody works really well. Wind cue. Harpsichord works. Flute is a good layer, but it does seem to repeat the phrase over and over again. So, needs a strong lead line, strong melody. Even the guitar kind of pattern goes around and around. So more change to that also. Fire cue. Percussion works. But then we have just the, kind of the repetition. Don't bom, with the drums and the brass there. So more development through the cues, more changes overall. Water. Again, good instrumentation, but just develop through the cue. Could even use that as a light solid. Even although I don't really feel the progression moving, it just sits there on that same chord. Boom. Oh wait, 5, 1. I guess it goes back and forth between the 5 and the 1. So more development. Whether that's through lead melodies or furthering the chord progression. Everything fits together nicely. Good instrumentation. The overall sound of everything works pretty well. Works well nicely. All right, and the last one here. We'll do one more with the earth cue. This is a good example of the size of the instrumentation. Smaller handheld instruments, smaller handheld percussion. The flute line, a couple of wind layers, solid lead line. This lead could actually come up a little bit, although it does kind of stick out there in the higher frequencies at points. So great foundation for the other cues. Let's move on to the wind. All right, solid layers here. Weighted a little bit more towards the lower range. Oops. Again, might just be my headphones, the loudness of the harp. Would like to hear something maybe in the real low end, just a low drum, low impact hit. That's just like hits at just at the bar or something. Fire cue. Good instrumentation, good power, good energy. Got the movement from the strings, the power from the drums, and the low brass. A good lead line there. Yeah, works nicely. Good solid change in intensity and power. Yeah, maybe just a little bit more movement from the flute line. Seems to almost be sitting on the bar change again. Or the chord change. Let's put them all back together, see what happens. Fit nicely together. There's just one note in there that seemed to be a bit off when combining them together. You would always want to pay attention to what really sticks out from each one of the cues. Is that the instrument that you really want to focus on when you're listening to them all together? All right, some very good submissions here. Some great stuff to talk about. Everything fit nicely together. That's one of the most important aspects, and the core aspect here is that all four layers fit well together when played back. And so it seemed like we had some good submissions where it may sound like a lot and cluttered when put them together, and that's a bit more of choice of instrumentation and range and mix. But at least layers and content and composition wise, they worked well together. So good stuff. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'll stick around for a few minutes afterwards and address anything that you need. But other than that, we will wrap it up there. And I will see you again on Thursday. All right. Thank you very much and have a good day.